It's the second last episode of Star Trek Picard, so I suppose, we better get to it. You know who I am, whatever. So we ended last week with Soong getting an Agnes Borg army. Rennie Picard is probably up to something, whatever. Why didn't you just assimilate Soong? That's what I'm asking. Again, whatever. You know how I feel about this show, and I think a lot of people watching this video feel the same too. This will contain spoilers for what it's worth. So we pick up in France, where the new army showed up. Rios manages to escape with the Doctor and her kid, and Agnes takes some components from the Borg Queen's corpse, and somehow Picard is back in France. Last time we seen him, he was in LA with Seven and Raffi. It's not explained how he got there. I assume it's Talon, because later on she uses her portal to save Rios, but the transporters were down, and yeah, cause writing, whatever. There is quite a good back and forth between Agnes and the Queen, and it's not the only one in this episode, and I mean that as in it's not the only back and forth, it is probably the only good one. And Agnes points out that even if the Queen succeeds, the Borg will be destroyed by the Confederation in the future, because time travel, and the Queen just says, well, we know what's going to happen, so we're going to change it, and yeah, I can't argue with that, she's 100% right. But Agnes has created an Eleanor defence programme, which I suppose is for more ethically based murders in the TV show. I mean, you can't have likeable characters killing people willy-nilly, that was going on in season 1. And as Seven says, they're not people, they're Borg, and wow, is that ever going to come back to bite her in the ass later in the episode? And what's weird is, when the fight starts, we then get flashbacks with Picard as a kid, and why? I thought this story had sort of resolved itself, and during this we don't really get that much more information. We find out neither of his parents are particularly nice people, and what I've got to say is I love James Callis as an actor, but he's not dressed as like a farmer or a vineyard owner in this. How the hell can a kid Jean-Luc Picard's age not know what hide and seek is? The mother has to explain what it is to him. But Talon manages to whisk the Doctor and Rios away, and they end up stranded in Talon's apartment. So I kind of think that if you've seen this episode, you know how it ends, but I still think that Rios might end up staying in the past. So Picard decides to play hide and seek with Soong in the house, and they try to talk him down, or he tries to talk them down after there's been a huge gunfight, and he's standing in front of a dozen armed Borg pointing guns at Picard, and he tells him he's not a violent man. Because writing, obviously. Does anyone care? If you care, or actually if you don't care, leave a like. And all I could think of once this started was, this character is so far removed from the Picard that we got in The Next Generation. He would never have come up with this in a million years. There would have been some other brilliant strategy, or at least a much better conversation between these two characters. And because these guys have had so little screen time together, you don't really care. There's no sense of adversity. This hasn't really built to anything, and nothing involved in the relationship here when it comes to how these guys feel about each other is particularly earned. But yeah, going back to the mother stuff, again, I don't get it. It was covered a few episodes ago. We've got I suppose we've got 2 left by the start of this episode, but we've now got 1 left to go. And the storyline just feels tired and burns out, and he even stops halfway through the episode to tell Talon about the history of the house, so it just feels at certain points they're padding this season out. The episode isn't a mess like the previous ones, it's just not a good way to tell a story. All this Picard's mother stuff could have been out of the way by episode 3 and 4 rather than episode 9. But one thing that we do get that's positive in this episode is a bit of backstory about what happened to 7 of 9 when Voyager got back home. She signed up to Starfleet, but apparently being Borg was an issue. So does that mean that Starfleet are going to be back to being the bad guy? Because she seemed to indicate it was some sort of prejudice that drove her out of Starfleet. And Raffi keeps suggesting that she would be a good captain, so I guess that's probably going to happen in the next season if she survives. So, back to the Eleanor hologram man, and yeah, they love to bring the actor back for this season even though they killed him in the second episode. And it turns into a little bit Home Alone-y, and I did think they would do this in the house. And by this stage of the episode, I'll be honest, I'd lost interest. But one thing that I thought was weird is, why does an Eleanor hologram need to dodge bullets? They would pass right through on this show. It's just so lazy, they don't care, they can't even stick to their own rules. It's all about what's going to make this exciting. Let's ignore established rules and common sense and just do that. And yeah, it just felt like a 24th century or 25th century episode of Home Alone with a much less cute and likeable character in the main role. And he also tells Raffi he's missed her, even though this is the first time they've met, because this programme has all of Eleanor's memories at the time he died, even though we didn't see them scan his brain, they just stuck him in a drawer, and quite frankly, I hope he would stay there. And he also tells Raffi he loves her, so I suppose that's a resolution to that story. I mean, he might come back, does it even matter anymore? I don't know. Well yeah, like and subscribe. One of the other issues that happened in a previous episode was the Doctor using the future medical tech to save Picard, and she uses it here again with Rios. Rios also manages to use the Watcher tech and completely understand that as well, but this whole thing about they don't give a fuck about the timeline is really bugging me. You know, they're going to have to kill all those Borg. Rios is totally messed with this Doctor unless he is his own granddad, and he showed them replicators, transporters, phasers, and God knows how many medical instruments. So how is that not going to change the course of the future, as well as these soldiers getting assimilated? I'm sure more than a few of them had husbands, wives, partners, and whatever, and now they're just Borgified. This episode seems like it's forgetting about the last 3 or 4. We don't get any update on Q, we haven't seen Renee in ages, so what's she up to, and is she doing anything more? Do you care? Do I care? Do the writers care? But one thought that did occur to me is they definitely need to do a Shadow Picard escape room, because I think that would pay off very well, and I will take 10% of the gross. Thank you very much, Paramount. Jerry Ryan's stunt double also gets to do a lot of good work in the dark. And then we get on to the resolution with the Borg Queen. So let's just get it out of the way. Yeah, Agnes is the Borg Queen from another time. Basically, Agnes and the Queen work together. They make a deal to save 7 of 9 that involves them taking the last arena as they want to go off to the Delta Quadrant and form a new Borg collective based on, I suppose, the individual. But doesn't that go against everything the Borg were doing? Also, how does that work? Are they going to like de-Borg current Borg? Is this going to be some sort of volunteer system? We're not going to get any answers, so I suppose this makes no difference whatsoever. But Rios does make it back to the fight, and he does get a pretty good Han Solo moment. Also, we find out that phasers have now got Touch ID, so that's handy when you need it to be to tell a story, I suppose. So, with 1 to go, all I can say is I'm looking forward that this show is going to come to an end. However, I am worried that if this is what they've done to Season 2, what are they going to do with Season 3? They got us in the door with 2 pretty solid episodes this season in Picard, but most people that are sticking around for the whole run, like me, are generally losing interest in the storytelling week by week. And I get that, I understand it, and I'm not saying that I particularly hate this show. I'm saying that I think it's an absolute disappointment, and I feel that I've been missold. And I want to know what you think about this. How are you getting on with Star Trek Picard? How do you think it's going to end? Give you a hint, it's going to be a big emotional speech. Let me know in the comments below. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Leave a like on the video, and if you've not subscribed already, do it.